We're live.
Nice. Well, good to meet everyone here at the Guitar Summit. My name is Geoff Lamden, and as I was just saying a second ago, I'm really a bass player, but out of necessity, I became a guitar player just for the sake of volume at my own house. Little background history on me. Professional touring musician in the bar scene, going from here to the West Coast and up to Alaska and back, 99 through 2003. Had a child, turned into a children's musician, and wrote huge amounts of children's songs, because when I started listening to kids' music, I was like, oh no, I can't do it. So kind of created my own to be able to listen to in the car with my son. Got on an African drum ensemble and would go into elementary, middle schools, and high schools and teach kids about African drumming, African dancing, and African singing. African music is very different than Western music because they don't do all the mean tone tuning that we do here. So like a perfect third in African vocalization is a perfect third. So I had to play everything with my fretless bass, not my fretted bass, because the intonation of the Nigerians was totally different than just classical, 12-note mean tone tuning. Anyone who's not familiar with mean tone tuning, it's something that we did in, I believe it was the 1600s or so, and we just made it where instead of there being an F sharp and a G flat, that just became one note. And so the scale that we actually play in on a guitar that's fretted is a scale that's really only a couple hundred years old. If you go back 400 years ago, music sounded completely different. And now we're in this world where we have these loop pedals and stuff. So I just played this a few seconds ago before y'all came in, just to create an environment. And back in the day, music could only be experienced live. Now I have the opportunity to create a live experience, playing over myself over and over and over again, to take all the knowledge I have or take all the charisma I've got to explore. One quote I really enjoy is, in the rest of the world, music is something you do. And in Western culture, music is something you either know or you do. And there's very few people who know everything about music in Western culture's rules and do it. Most people who know everything about it become composers. And there's very few people who do music who know everything about its theory and everything like that. If you want to just get deep into someone's head, Travis Swanson, who's teaching here later today, is the only human I've met in Michigan who's gone to the nth degree of doing and knowing about everything possible musical. So your brain could explode. It's a trick. So what we're doing today is I'm here to talk about, I call it the oops and loops, and so letting you know that there is actually no accidents in music, since music is something we do, not something we necessarily need to know. There really isn't wrong notes. There really doesn't need to be oh, it's 4 measures long. It might be 3.5 measures, and then you hit the button and it's looping there. It doesn't mean you did it wrong. It means you have the opportunity to have an experience with it. So just like if you go to the beach and it's raining, you didn't go on a bad day. You just happened to be at the beautiful lake at the beach while it's raining.
Exactly.
So that's my approach to music. I also then do singing bowl and didgeridoo and esoteric instrument work, where I go into yoga studios and create soundscape environments for people to do their yoga to. I was a professional improv musician, so I love not knowing what's going to happen next. That's my favorite thing. So something else to think about is we're doing loop pedals or whatever. Are you looping yourself to create a song, or are you looping yourself to see what new thing you might learn about yourself that day? So this is ways to take the oops out of loops, to actually have an intention and focus, but also to accept the oops and loops, knowing that music is something we do, not something we know. So right here, this loop I set up right here you know, I've just got this little an A sus9 chord, so it's just basically, it's not defining if it's major or minor, so I can go over it. Let's turn this down a bit. So one of the things I really like to do with looping is create possibility versus like getting stuck. So by just playing this A chord, it's got an A, it's got an E, and it's got a B. So I don't have my third declared, so I don't know if it's a major chord or a minor chord. I don't know if I'm playing in Mixolydian or Dorian, if people know modes and stuff like that. I'll just kind of like display to you like what that means. So there's just a straight major, but then I could go to something like set. Like those are the kind of things, you know, you're thinking about when you're playing guitar. You know, I'm going to kind of drop out like always saying the word looping, because a lot of us here are never going to loop. We're going to maybe play with a friend, or maybe we're like going to get a loop pedal and get real frustrated with it because we're trying to make it do something, and it's not the loop pedal's fault, it is the musician. Loop pedal can do whatever the musician tells it to do. It's the musician, you know what I mean? But you know, so if I'm trying to create a more sad environment, I'm going to do that minor stuff. Get happy. So it's just creating those environments. So if we think of a major scale, it's going to create joy. Think of a minor scale, it's going to create some sort of sorrow. A major scale is an answer. A minor scale is more of a question. So these are things like people don't always think about when they're playing music. Like, I'm just going to play this song, or like, why do I love this song? And the reason you love it is the way that the angle of the music is coming at you. So we call it magic hour, when the sun is just at that right spot, casting shadows to the forest and everything's golden. Well, you can create your magic hour anytime you want. You just have to create the angle that comes at it. So I can sit here and just hang on this third bit. By it going nowhere, it actually creates tons of movement. Because when something is solid like a tree, you can walk around it and look at all its different aspects. Whereas if I'm always moving, like a river, where it's like, that's cool, there it goes, that's cool, there it goes, that's cool, there it goes. So when you're playing with something like looping, you're thinking about that. Am I trying to create, you know, by making this real simple loop behind me, I've created this whole set environment. And once I've set an environment, then I can build off it. But sometimes, you know, I may want the environment to be completely chaotic or something like that. Let's see what that does. Then I can just come back over. So now I just have this chaos happening. So then I just have to find, what could I do with it? Challenges that I find fun, where you just like play random notes where you don't know where it's going. What can I do with that? So by creating a set riff, I can take this chaos and make it sound like I know what I'm doing. Organizing it, or sometimes taking something that's completely organized and turning it into chaos. So once again, somewhat talking about the loop pedal, but I'm also talking about us as musicians, at what point are we pushing ourselves to do some new thing that we know nothing about? At what point are we being like, I've learned this thing and I want to master it before I move on to the next thing? What's your name again, Jack? Is it Jack?
I'm Jack, yeah.
Yeah, sweet. Jack and I were playing earlier, and he was showing me something that he just created with his ear, and it was beautiful, and he's like, you know, where do I go with this? Well, I have trained music theory knowledge, so the accidental thing I can do is tell him, oh, you could go right to A minor because that's where it would like resolve to. The problem you run into with that is like, that's what everyone else has already done. So it's like that whole thing of like, just because I know it can go somewhere and it can settle in at that spot, doesn't necessarily mean that that's always what I'm looking for. Now, if you're playing with a friend around a campfire and there's other people, like you probably want to have it settle in. You probably want to have it make sense until everyone believes that you're a good musician, and then you can take them wherever you want. But if you just start like hanging around a great campfire where everyone's talking and hanging out, and you come out there and do something what I just did, like, yeah, yep. Like the 3 people who are like in the zone will hang out with you, and the other 20 people are like, hey, we're gonna go like in the house and stuff like that, you know, and you're sitting out there bobbing your head like, yes, yes, I'm touching God's finger. And they're like, okay, man. So something for us all to know as musicians, we're weird, yeah. We're weird, we're good people. We're doing something that people have done for thousands of years. But most people in our American society now, when they think of music, like they think of pop radio, they think of a hit, they think of something they've already known and heard. I was fascinated when I went and saw a Indonesian orchestra, because I've seen our symphony and our orchestra play. So our symphony, you've got about 40 to 60 string players and 1 percussionist. In the Indonesian orchestra, they've got 40 to 60 percussionists and 1 string player. And those percussionists are playing tones that are all between our frets. And so the string player or the flautist or whatever always has to be something that's fretless or like is able to bend the note, because they've got so many other notes that they're playing there.
Microtones, right?
Yep. And so the microtones are really, you know, when we use flange pedals and phase pedals and all these things that create all these kind of warped sounds, it's because it's bringing out the microtones. And the true human ear, the first thing it always hears is the highest possible note. The second thing it hears is the lowest possible note. And then it hears everything in between. So when you start getting these microtones hitting, they're creating overtones. The reason we love an F major chord of F, A, and C is because the F to an A, that third, creates an overtone. The A to the C, a minor third, creates an overtone, and the F to the C creates an overtone. So we're playing a triad, which we're actually hearing are 3 overtones, and we think we're hearing this chord out of the guitar, but really the thing we're hearing is something so much bigger than that. That's just like a simple C chord there, you know? Take notes that all sound good together, you can put them at whatever rhythmic aspect you want. Then I start throwing in the major 7. So depending on if that B is hitting with the E or the C or the G, just creating overtones on top of it. Put in that augmented 4th. Perfect fourth. This shows you how simple it is to create some massive thing. Sounded like there was a whole bunch of movement because of all the rhythmic aspect, but all that was C, E, and G, not even like in multiple octaves all over the place. So it's like these are the ways that I approach music, where it's like when you're creating a soundscape, you know, you have to think about things in nature. So if you go to Lake Michigan and it's a wide open beach with a lake, there's no trees, anything like that, like your soundscape is probably going to be vast. It's going to be more one that's going to, that'd be more one that would probably sound more like something like this. Same thing, it's just a chord, but now since we're not going, this creates this big soothing environment. So this chord specifically is a C major 7 that I play as an A minor. So it's basically, well, as funny as it is, it's the exact chord that I was just playing, but instead of with a G note, with an A, doing the whole B in there. And so now by having this huge openness, you know, I can choose how fast this moves. So I can be slow with it. Other thing, if you're playing an electric guitar, like you got lots of pickups, so change your tone, you know. So like I'll create a loop, and then like the next loop I'll change what pickup I have. And so that way if you're playing a bunch of notes that are intermingling with each other, by it coming through in such a different tonality. On acoustic guitars, you can change by picking close to your bridge or picking further up on the neck to create a brightness versus like a softness. Or, you know, I could have all this swelling going on and be like, so it's that whole like changing in things. I'm trying to sit as still as possible. I'm definitely the guy with my mouth hanging open, my eyes are rolled back.
Drooling a little bit.
Yep, a little bit of drool, you know. Like once my drool like hits my foot on the wop, I'm like, oh, hello everyone.
Yeah.
Back, you know. Sorry y'all had to see that in live person. Yeah. So beyond, so even in the world, if you're not having loop pedals, just like thinking about this, like when you're strumming, you know, I don't need to be like. Trick if you're looping. If your first loop is rhythmic, everything you're gonna have to do beyond that in that loop will have to be rhythmic. Whereas if your first loop is something that's open like this, like I can choose to all of a sudden, you know, come in with something over it like. So then if I like the rhythm, I can stay playing with it. simple stuff. I need room to play over it, so I don't want to be like, blah, 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 blah. Then if I don't like it, it's gone. So, yeah, it's a matter of knowing what you're trying to achieve. Am I trying to just achieve some kind of openness, or is it more like the beautiful thing with the loop pedal too is like you can have that whole wide open thing happening, and then you just stomp it off as you. So if let's see, let me just do this real quick here. Oops. Clear. Good old loop pedals. I learned the whole thing of not strumming when I was playing bass on an album with a guy who's an acoustic singer-songwriter, and he'd come in and he was so used to playing alone, he'd always like strum the beat of the song real quick, and the recording artist is like, hey man, like we're screwed for the whole rhythm track, like we're gonna have to go by whatever you strum, unless you could come in here, so if I'm doing something like All Along the Watchtower, instead of being like, there must be some kind of way out of here, like he would want you to go like, there must be some kind of way out of here. And so then after the recording's done, then you can come back in and like. So it's this whole thing when you're looping too, like if I start off with something that's rhythmic, I'm stuck to it. Whereas if I just start off with something like this, I could even come in with like since it's just strumming that A chord. Let's say you're trying to just push yourself to play your scales as fast as you can. You can just come in with something like this. So it's like, okay, now I can practice whatever scale per se I want to practice. So let's say I want to practice my D major scale. Let's say now I want to practice my, what's the scale I suck at? F major. So the whole thing with that is, with the advent of YouTube and all that kind of stuff, like we obviously can get whatever drum beats we want off the internet. If you're playing with someone else, you can get whatever you want. But if you're playing in a live scenario like that, it's the kind of thing where you can just give yourself a rhythm track to then play over. I hung out with Rodrigo and Gabriella. Anyone know? They're like amazing classical guitar players from South America. Well, they stopped into my tap room and I busted out my singing bowls and didgeridoo, and they were mind blown, and I got to go play with them on stage at Frederick Merritt Garden a few years ago. Yeah, the random thing of quitting being a professional musician so I can like get on with my life, to then meet, two internationally famous musicians and end up playing on stage with them. Because if you're a musician, you're a musician. No matter what you do in your life, you'll constantly be looking for music. You'll constantly be creating music. You'll constantly be like saying something to someone, and they're like, I've never even thought about that song in that way. Like, no, don't you hear that juxtaposition there? It's fine, but those are their harmonies. And other people are like, I've never even thought of that. I just, I like that. I didn't even know those were the words they were singing. I thought they were always saying, like. So it's really interesting. We as musicians, as any artist, we approach the world differently than other people. Like right here, I'm sitting here looking at this blue wall with this giant white board and stuff like that, and what I see is just 1,000 musical ideas. I don't see like a dry erase board in a wall, because that's just how my mind works. I worked in produce for about 20 years, and I worked with a musician friend who's a trumpet player who played with like Michael and Randy Brecker and all this stuff, amazing guy, and he's like, I just don't get this produce thing. And I'm like, each different thing is a musician in the band, and you have to like make sure that everything goes together with cordiality and tonality. And all of a sudden, like, it was amazing what this guy could do with produce after I told him that, because so many times, like, we if you're not a musician at heart and you're like a woodworker, well, take your woodworking knowledge into the way that you approach music. Whatever you do in your life, if there's something you do more than music, you probably know a lot about that thing. So then apply that to music. I always have semi-truck drivers that, how do you know so much about health and music and all this kind of stuff? I'm like, dude, if I tried to shift your truck into one gear, I'd blow the whole thing up and wreck your engine. Because we know what we know. So don't always step away from what it is that you know. But also realize that if you know something, that also means you don't know something. So be willing to allow that thing you don't know to show up in its existence too. Yes, sir.
Two questions.
Yeah.
One, there is like, probably already know this and everyone does, there is like so many tools for looping stations. Which ones would you recommend? And
Yeah.
two, when it comes to the looping station, like the moment, the way you were speaking, the moment it occurred to me, I was thinking of Andrew Bird and the way he figured out his loops, like at the end of it, you're like, wow, it's like a symphony playing. I don't know if anybody knows who he is, but he's a violinist who does looping. But he also has an octave pedal. So with the octave pedal, he can change the octaves of his violin to sound like a viola or a cello. So at the end of his loops, you're just like, wow, it sounds like a 18-piece orchestra.
Yep.
But what I'm saying about him is I always find out there's a story to it. There's always like some sort of vibe, and it sounds like you have that. You want to be conscious of that. I was wondering if you could give any advice to that.
Yeah.
When it comes to your settings of like, you're playing a gig, you're like, obviously I'm not going to go crazy. Maybe this is not that vibe, or maybe it is. Like, how do you gauge that storytelling? You follow what I mean? Like,
Oh, totally.
Because every audience is different. So
Yep.
it's just, that's one thing I always have a struggle with. When to go chaotic, be soft, tell your story,
Yeah.
and not with the tool.
Yeah, when to respect your audience.
Exactly.
Always
And
respect
the
your audience.
ear. It's mostly
Yeah.
the ear. That's how I see it.
All right, so we'll start with the first question, which is like, what kind of looping pedal, stuff like that,
Yeah.
And I watch Sam plays at my tap room, and I watch what he walks in with and stuff like that, and I laugh. I personally have gone after this thing here. It's an Electro Harmonics 360, so it can do 6 minutes of looping. It's got 11 different like I can memorize something. Like here's this loop, I played months ago. I said my friend's name Don Brooks, and some girl's like, why do you keep saying God bless? And I'm like, I just said Don Brooks. So I've kept this loop on here for like months, because it's just, it's just something funny and weird. But I unplugged this thing from the wall. I have it sitting in a gig bag for 2 weeks and not doing anything, and that loop just stays there. I'm like, that's pretty cool. My last looping pedal didn't save anything. So I can save 11 things, but it only has 6 minutes total. So if I make a hardcore 5-minute loop, well, I don't have 6 minutes on every loop then and stuff like that. But I personally go deeply after simplicity, because I like to create brand new moments over and over and over again. I'll loop on this thing, rip something that's blowing my mind, I'll just laugh, like, click, click, gone forever, next thing. So, Sam, you're here at the right moment. What's the looping pedal you use nowadays, man?
Boomerang.
Yeah, the Boomerang, the original loop pedal. Dude, it's monstrous.
3 tracks.
Yeah, 3 tracks.
You can do reverse. You can do halftime.
And it will like cut your stuff to like specific measures, so like it knows it'll loop.
Yeah, so like you set one loop, and then all the other tracks will be multiples of it.
Yep.
So it's like you just do like one bar, and then you can do like 2 phrases in the next bar, and then you can do multiples of 4 bars on that. So it's the best. It's just the best.
It's horrible because I'd get frustrated and confused with it, and I'd end up trying to do
This section brought to you by Boomerang.
Yeah, exactly. We'll take any free pedals you want to send us.
Yeah.
So I found in the world of looping, I got into looping way before looping was a thing. With just digital delay pedals, I would just daisy chain them and create these 2-second, like, I have 1980s rack systems that are awesome. And I still use them in my looping sessions. And in today's world, there's such technology where like you can have a loop pedal harmonize with you and all that. Like you could play like Andrew Bird just by going, you could just be like, and like, because they have all this technology and stuff. So I personally like something really simple because I am such a creative person that it'll get in my way if I give myself something that thinks for me. And I'll quit testing myself as a musician if it thinks for me. At the same time, when I see some of the stuff Sam does, I'm like, that'd be fun. Like, that'd be really cool, like for my pedal to know when to stop it and start the next thing and stuff like that. So I'm not the best. I know I'm teaching this class on supposedly looping, but I'm more into the oops part than the loops part, which is like saying there aren't accidents, or if there is an accident, it's your own fault. Now we're going to the Andrew Bird thing. Yeah, you got to know where you're going, and in the way that he creates a story is his passion of life. So first of all, if you're a musician and all you do is play music, your music sucks. Like you have to live life. You have to go. You should go fishing. It's great to go fishing. But no, getting out in nature is a great thing to do. Talking to a person you've never talked to before, that's a cool thing to do. Looking at the world in a different way. So sometimes even for my guitar, like I'll do something like turn all this bass down. Just like, have this tone that I have no interest in, like, this tone of like. But as soon as I hear that tone, I'm kind of like, oh, that's totally like some James Brown or like Michael Jackson, like 1980s. Like that tone is gonna make me play my instrument different. I also will take my guitar and I will tune it however I want. I was telling Jack earlier, I only play classical guitar strings and electric guitar because I like to take my guitar and tune it into open C, open G, open F. I'll just take like whatever random like healing tone. They say like, hey, this like 396 hertz frequencies releases guilt and fear. Well, I'll turn my guitar to 396 hertz and sit there and rip these huge soundscapes, you know what I mean? And to an average guitar player, it might be like, hey man, you're like way out of tune. But someone who's just listening to something like, that's really pretty, what is that? I'm like, oh, it's a guitar. And they'll be like, how's that a guitar? But it's because, once again, a reminder that like this scale that we play in is only a couple hundred years old. I found this beautiful book one time that had guitars from the ages, and there was a guitar back in the 1800s that was a magnetic fretboard, and then they had different fretboards you would stick onto it. They were tuned to the specific scale, so you couldn't play wrong. Isn't that cool? So it's like, oh, let me put on my E major fretboard. Chunk. And he's like, yeah, and like why they quit making this, I have no idea, because I just think that's so cool that you could get a graphite guitar nowadays with like a bar going through it and have these magnetic fretboards. It's like, oh yeah, here I want to rip in this Indian scale. Oh, I want some microtones real quick, so I'm going to put on the fretboard that has fretless high B and E string, and everything else is fretted for my chordal work and stuff. So anyone out there who builds guitars and looking for a guitar with no frets on the B and E string, with frets on the low 4. And C is one like,
Talk to Russell.
yeah, I just think that'd be so my style, where I could like go wherever I want in the gliding top. So Andrew Bird, though, obviously has a deep knowledge of composition and such things. So the reason that it sounds like a whole symphony is the rhythmic interlaying. So it's like if his high parts, going like he's got some other part that's juxtaposed against it, like bo 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 bo. And they'll have some middle part that might be like ostinatos. Do you guys know what ostinatos are? The same thing over and 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 over. So something like that's just like so that's an ostinato where it's just doing the same thing over again. And then I can put another ostinato over it. I just keep changing what octave I'm playing in. So it's like if you really want to create like a big pattern of things that are doing that. One of my favorite things is to create a huge loop of chaos and then put the ostinato over it though, to like make the whole thing come back together. But like an easy way if you want to write like larger compositions is just like come up with 4 ostinatos that are all in the same key, stick them over each other, and then see what comes up with it. Because the thing that happens is when you play 4 different things that are rhythmically patterned in 4 different ways, like these new like little worlds just kind of like bounce out of there and stuff. It's the same idea as like if I all of a sudden do this, like now I'm looking at this Epson whatever, that's probably that projector thing there, you know what I mean? And so it's just a different perspective. I'm in the same room. I'm in the same room, I'm looking here. I'm in the same room, I'm looking here. So it's the same idea with an ostinato. It's like creating 4 walls, but then with the way that it bounces around, it's showing you all these different ways that you can look at that stuff. So to create an ostinato, the first thing that's really nice is to know your scales. Does everyone here know their scales? It's cool if you don't. Yeah, cool. And remember that scales are made up. Like you don't have to learn the scales that everyone plays. You can maybe create your own scale, like what you were doing today. He was doing a we were just talking about how that's so that's a melodic minor, so you've got the whole A minor thing of like, but here he's got that major 7. So, and what I was trying to do, because he was playing that, he's like, I don't know where to go from here, and of course, I want to go where every single other musician has gone, which is like. So it's like going into A minor, but the thing is by showing that F, so an E major chord would not normally be an A minor because there's a G sharp, whereas normally like that would be the chord, but. And so it's the kind of thing too where if you're playing an A minor and all of a sudden you go into that, like, so if I'm just doing something like now all of a sudden right here. Oh, now we're back to it. I play guitar like a bass player, but that's what I do. Well, the joke always was, now that Geoff's in the band, all we need is a bass player. So I play bass like a guitar like a bass player. So something I also had said earlier, which is the human ear, the first thing it hears is the highest note. So I'll just kind of give you an example of how that works. All these notes, it's an A minor, a C major, and an F, so they all have a C in it. So I'm just going to kind of show you how this happens. As much as that movement's happening underneath it, like your ear just gets pierced with a ding, 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 ding. And then the second thing that the ear hears is the lowest possible notes. So maybe I do all my, maybe we turn my bass up and my ripping there. Soloing just underneath that really high note. Here it's not, it's like you don't hear it as much. So I go deeper beneath it. Change my tonality and make it brighter, then you're going to hear it over all this. I'll even turn the volume down. Whereas if I go back to that original tonality, so it's there, it's like kind of supporting it now. Change my tonality, so it's cutting through it. So same idea on an acoustic guitar. If you're trying to play a solo that's like in people's face, you're going to do more of your picking down by the bridge. If you're trying to play something that's like kind of soothing people into stuff, you might be playing more up in this area and stuff. What are the rules of the class? Have we done it 45? So people have 15 minutes between classes? Sweet. So let's do questions. Anyone? Yes, sir.
How many layers does that thing do?
As many as I want.
As many as you want.
Freaking
So,
nuts.
so you can put down something, and then you can lay something else down, and then you can lay something else down, and then lay something else
Yeah, like,
down.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, like 1,000 things. Like this, going back to this one track I left recording. You know? Like, there's probably 9 different things going on here, you know? And even like the downworks thing is like, that's like 7 times through, like this like delay pedal I had that like would melt it and redo it. But yeah, I mean I could have sat here and played the entire time and just like recorded stuff. And it's sweet because when you build it, like your ear can follow it. Like there's nothing more fascinating than listening to the recording of someone like Andrew Bird building the loop. It's like, it's one thing to hear the loop at the end, like, oh, that's fascinating. But when you actually hear the building of it, your ear will be pulled to something, and like the next thing you know, within 2 minutes, it's like, I can't even hear that thing anymore. Like I thought that was the whole theme of this whole loop was that thing, but then as more colors and textures and rhythms come over it, it just disappears. And that's what makes a great song, you know? I
And how
listened
do
to
you
Electric
erase it?
Ladyland.
How do you erase it on that day? So you
I
wanna
just
start-
push a button. So I push the button once,
Uh-huh.
and it, oops, sorry, I recorded something. All right, so I push the button once,
Okay.
it's recording, then I hit it again, you know, it loops that.
Okay.
Then I can record over that.
Okay.
Then I can record over that. Then I can record over that. And then I can, if I want to, I can then play over that, or I can erase all that, have it go back to the original, just loop. Yep.
Down on that.
Yep.
Okay.
So on my pedal, whatever I recorded last, like I can let it loop through as many times as I want, but whatever I recorded last, if I want to hold the pedal down, it'll erase whatever I recorded last. So I can make these huge ventures and then clear that out, but still have my like boom, ba, dee, boom, kshta, boom, ba, dee. And all of a sudden, then I can build the whole thing off that. So I can show people, you know, how you can create one thing and have it go into a complete world. It's like etch and sketch, you know? You know? So it's the same, and that's how I like to loop. I like to you completely erase it and start over from fresh, or show people how one thing can go everywhere. If you're a songwriter, or if you're like trying to learn more about your scales and stuff like that, you might just loop yourself playing, you know, you might just like loop like, and then you're like, oh, I can play an A major now. You know, you might just sit around and do that for 5 hours until your spouse unit's like, shut up! I think you've got it! You know what I mean? You're like, but did you notice like the beat? It sounded so good. You know, so also remember that if you're looping, they do make headphones for your roommates and stuff like that. You know, just because you're lost in your world with your mouth hanging open drooling, the other person might be in another room like. So, other questions?
Or check up on you, like, what's wrong with you?
Yeah, and you're like laying there on the floor like, shh, shh, shh. It's amazing. During quarantine, I took my loop pedal and I took my delay machine, which I could have it not play my first note and just play the note like it should have been repeating. So I could play, and then a second later, the actual note I played would come out. So I was playing through my loop pedal on a left-handed guitar while staring at a convex mirror that was showing what was behind me upside down, and playing with everything coming out 1 second after it did. To just push myself as a musician to be like, what if, you know, because there's times where you're gonna be on stage and you can't hear yourself, and you just have to trust that you know you're playing the right notes and stuff. So yeah, it's just a fun little practice to like push myself, because since I've been playing 27 years, it's hard for me to forget how to play. So I find it really important, if you ever think that you know what you're doing on the guitar, pick up an instrument you know nothing about, and you're probably gonna learn a lot more about the guitar again.
That's very true.
All right, we've hit our time slot.
How
Yeah.
How much does something like that cost?
This pedal cost me $108. Totally worth it. How much is the back to Boomerang? How much?
Well, I mean, I'm waiting for my sponsorship to kick in, but
Yeah.
it's around $350.
Ooh,
Yeah.
$350.
Yeah.
$350?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and what I have found is that if I have something more complex, I end up not playing. If I have something like this,
Yeah.
like, and I love the other one I had, because if I unplugged it, I lost everything. So like,
Okay.
it was good for me, because I'm such a creative person that I'll end up doing nothing.
Now, can you erase it totally? Erase
Yeah,
everything?
you can erase
out
it.
if you
Yeah,
want to?
yeah. I had 11 loops on here that I erased to make sure that when I was like showing you guys stuff, all of a sudden hit play and it was like, don't worry, yeah, right, yeah.
And yet, it happened anyway.
Well, I showed it to it on purpose. It was on purpose. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have another session coming up here, so if everyone can like give a hand to Geoff.
Give it a hand, yeah. No, thank you, Matt, yeah. I appreciate you guys' attention. It's awesome.
Yeah. We got another session coming up. We'll have Elijah in this room.